When it comes to AI, many distributors are still dipping in a toe, but experts believe that they need to get more aggressive about their approach. Joining us today is Kristen Thom, the Senior Vice President of Customer Experience at White Cup, and author of a recent guest column for Industrial Distribution magazine titled Busting the Top AI Myths Holding Distributors Back. This article generated some buzz with our audience, so we thought we'd follow up with Kristen for a deeper dive on some of the key points. Kristen, many distributors tell us that they're not yet using AI, but they plan to. In your article, you said that waiting is riskier than starting. Why do you think hesitation around AI adoption is so common in distribution? And what's one small, maybe safe first step that you would suggest a distributor could take today?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fear of getting it wrong and fear of putting in time, effort, and sometimes money into some of these tools and not having outcomes that match that. I like to use the example that we saw, 4 or 5 years ago, where a lot of distributors were putting a ton of time and money into e-commerce sites, and then they ended up not getting in some cases, a lot of traction through their e-commerce sites of actual chart or cart checkouts with those e-commerce sites. And I think there becomes a little bit of a fear of this new wave of tooling in a similar vein. Is, are we going to see that? However, what we saw with those e-commerce sites 4 or 5 years ago, and still see this today, is there's a lot of usage that distributors' customers are using on those to do research and things like that. And further data comes out of those e-commerce sites, even if you don't have the cart checkouts. And so it became this really interesting sort of chicken and egg situation with e-commerce sites for some distributors, where they were putting effort into these tools. Their customers were starting to use them and starting to use them in different ways. Things like price checking, understanding inventory levels, understanding what's available to them, different configuration options, even if they weren't using them how the distributor thought they might initially. And so there can be a little bit of hesitancy that these AI tools might be a similar kind of repeat of that technology cycle. And what I would suggest is, again, waiting is riskier than starting. Today, these tools are moving so quickly. There's so many options for folks. And the distributors that are getting in with that experimental mindset of, we're going to try this, we're going to see what happens and iterate on it from there, they are seeing these growth opportunities in their business that waiting is going to start making that harder and harder to catch up with your neighbors in distribution.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like every time a distributor gets burned, it impacts the next round, right? That new tech that's ahead. And obviously you have to be a little bit concerned about that waiting around, and then that opportunity passes you by.
Absolutely. And it's totally understandable, right? None of us want to put time and effort and money into something and not see the outcome we expect. So totally understandable. And I think that the mindset at this point has to be that experimental mindset. Let's start small and contained, see what we can do, and keep iterating on it from there.
All right. So you challenge the idea that distributors need perfect data before they can use AI. Can you share a real world example of how distributors are successfully using AI, even if they have what they might consider to be messy or incomplete data?
Yes. If you feel like your data is not good enough, you are the same as every distributor I talk to, I think. And again, it comes from a genuine place of wanting the best for your business. So I totally understand that. However, the AI tooling today, if you're picking tools that make sense for your business, and this is where picking tools that are built for distributor data sets can really be an accelerator with these AI adoption projects. But if you are picking the right tools, the AI models should be helping you find and sometimes even silo some of that data that is not perfect. So AI is really good at finding outliers in your data. So it can find the weird stuff that is throwing off your total numbers and your total projections, things like that. And then you can decide from there, hey, this is worth the time to go in and clean up this one set of data, this one area of data that really is throwing things off. Or, hey, the AI model is taking care of that for me. It's already finding those as outliers and segregating them for me. I don't really need to worry about that. There's higher priority stuff that we can go after. So this idea that you need to have this pristine set of data, first off, it's never going to happen. There's always going to be more that we can do to clean data. And second, the tools are at a stage where they can really help you get started, even if you feel like your data is in shambles. I promise it's not as bad as you think. And the tools will help you get to that end result that you need to get started.
So bad data is not an excuse.
It's not. Don't let it scare you.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, lastly, before we let you go, if you could bust one more myth about AI that you think is holding the industry back, something that you didn't cover in the article, what would that be?
I always like to challenge this assumption that you have folks in your business that are skeptical of technology and skeptical of AI that are going to hold you back. What I see time and again is that when we put these small directed AI tools into the hands of those folks who are skeptics, we give them context around what they're seeing. They can become your biggest adopters. You just have to be willing to give them a little bit of context and a little bit of understanding of the tools that they're using. Where I see this go wrong is you give a skeptic kind of wide access and say, hey, go for it without any guidelines or guardrails. Of course, it's not going to go well. They're going to say, hey, I can do this better my way I've always done it. And they're probably right at that point because you haven't given them ways to succeed with it. So rather than, just turn on ChatGPT and say, call it a day, hey, we have AI in our business, think about, hey, are there ways that we can use AI to better understand our customers and give that to our sales rep that we've had on our team for 25 years? And he can see the impact that it's having on being able to target his customers and be more effective with his day. Get really narrow with it with those skeptics, and they often become your biggest cheerleaders for these projects. So don't let yourself, again, fall into that rut of thinking that there are folks that will never adopt, never take hold of these different tools available.
Yes, absolutely. And if you can make their job easier, then certainly you will get that buy-in, I assume.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Kristen Thom with White Cup. If our audience wants to find more information from White Cup, where should we send them?
Go to whitecupsolutions.com. We've got all sorts of great information there for us. We'd love to talk with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Anna.